Hi, thanks for tuning in today. So something I'm workshopping with a team this week is looking at what our collective strengths are. So looking at individual strengths and then mapping that across the team. But I'm not going to talk about them, of course, but I will share a bit about the tool that we're using. And it's a tool that I discovered after reading Jenny Blake's book, Pivot, back in 2017. Now, before reading her book, I felt a little bit lost in the job that I was in. I didn't know how I was contributing. I thought maybe I'm just the odd one out here. What is wrong with me? And then I did the CliftonStrengths tool, and no joke, it completely changed my outlook on everything. I realized that, actually I do have these strengths, but maybe I'm not applying them in the right way. It was the most brilliant of reports. Anyway, I ended up bringing this tool into the company that I was working at, running it for teams, and then basically created a job where I was just running these workshops for teams all around the world. So within that company. And so, that's a nice, so it's a nice surprise when something that helps you out, you can really talk passionately about it. And I really love this tool. Now, I guess I do have a thing around, I've got to say, like with any type of psychometric assessment or any assessment where puts people in, gives them categories and labels and things like that, it's really not about the label. It's really around the conversation with it, how you relate to that. That helps build the self-awareness. For example, in my CliftonStrengths report, there's 34 different strengths, and communication for me is number 23 out of 34. And I've basically built a business off the back of communication. So with any of these tools, it's not a medical certificate to not being able to do the thing. Okay, it doesn't give you an excuse to not be good at something. There's ways around it. And so what I thought I'd share is basically how the tool works today. And then in tomorrow's episode, I'll share a bit more about my strengths. So the website is CliftonStrengths. Just Google it, go to Gallup. Gallup have been around for decades, leading market research company. Millions of people have done the CliftonStrengths assessment. And it's really based on the premise, it's based on positive psychology. So you can't be everything in the world, but you can be more of who you are. And it was a whole new approach for me because I guess, we brought up in school where if you're getting A's on everything and you're getting a C in maths, then you're like, I've really got to focus on becoming better at maths. But if you're coming in from a strengths perspective, it's like, no, how can you double down on English? How can you double down on things that you're already good at? Which weirdly enough for me in high school, I was really good at English and accounting, weirdly enough. I hate accounting now, but I enjoyed it back then. I thought the mathematics behind it was pretty easy, like the whole logic of balancing things out. Anyway, and so the strengths formula is a strength equals talent multiplied by investment. So for example, I wasn't so strong at physics in years 11 and 12. Let's just say I give myself a 2 out of 10 for physics. If I invest 4 years of university in physics, I'm going to be overall an 8. But if someone is a 10 out of 10 and they invest 4 years in studying physics, then they're going to be a 40, right? So you can see immediately what the return is if you invest in things that you're already good at. Now, this is really important in the workplace as well, because if you, so Donald Clifton, he's a PhD psychologist and business executive. He started asking the question, what will happen when we think about what is right with people rather than fixating on what is wrong with them? And I love this because every other, tool that I'd done in previous lives, like as part of teams, was all about like, you need to strengthen this area, or you're weak at that. But this is like, hey, there is something around that, what you can do to build things up, but like, let's focus on what makes you unique and let's go all in on that. And I love that approach. It's so refreshing. And so if you can say, okay, yes, at work, I have the opportunity to do what I do best every day. You are 3 times as likely to report having an excellent quality of life. So this doesn't just apply to work. Obviously, it's great for work, but the knock-on effects, if you are doing what you get to do best every single day, you're 3 times as likely to report having an excellent quality of life. That's why it's so important. You're also 6 times as likely to be engaged in your job because you're doing things that actually you're in the flow state, and because you're in the flow state, you're doing things that you're getting to showcase your talents, showcasing your strengths. And basically, if you work in the strength zone, you look forward to going to work, you have more positive than negative interactions with co-workers, you treat customers better, you tell your friends you work for a great company, you achieve more on a daily basis, and you have more positive, creative, and innovative moments. So is there any wonder why you wouldn't play to your strengths? And every time I reflect on my career and times where I wasn't enjoying the job, One of my first jobs was working for Accenture. I was working in instructional design. So I was designing programs for companies like the ATO and Telstra. And I hated it. And that's because a lot of it was just behind the scenes, taking orders. It was just basically transcribing what a subject matter expert had to say and trying to turn that into something that was engaging. But I wasn't getting to create or shape the content itself. I had to just use the Accenture tools. I just hated it. Like, I had no control over the concept and I just didn't like being that person. And so, yeah, I hated that job. I mean, Accenture is actually a good company. The people were great, but the job itself was terrible. And so I remember going into work, seeing the office and just feeling that awful feeling in my stomach. I was like, I just don't want to be here. And that's why I had a quarter life crisis and ended up joining Wicked Campers, which actually played to all of my top 5 strengths. So I'll share more on that, what that is tomorrow. But yeah, I'm just curious, have you done the tool? What are your top 5 strengths? There's basically your chance of getting the same top 5 as someone else in any order is 1 in 278,000. And I think the chances of you getting the same strengths in the same order as someone on Earth is 1 in 33 million. So obviously it's very, very tough to find someone that has those types of strengths. So I'll share more on my strengths tomorrow, but curious if you've done the tool. I love it. I love the tool. I love using it with teams. I think it's super powerful. And yeah, you get a lot of aha moments when we do it. Thanks for listening. I'll speak to you tomorrow.